tonight. I think it's
Like a sane opening.
7:30.
We're live.
All right.
It's really boring, I'm going to say. But
Up here with us.
Yeah. Richard, roll call? Or Karen, are you doing the roll call?
Okay, Chris Fry,
Here.
Dave Kensinger.
Here.
Richard Burke,
Here.
Otis Marsh,
Here.
Nancy Nilsson, Tor Benson,
Here.
Carly Byer.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Do we have any amendments to the previous meeting's minutes?
There aren't any at this
There
time.
aren't any at this time. Okay, so we'll skip on. Do we have any amendments to the agenda for this meeting?
I have one.
Yes.
I think that we should do 9B before 9A.
Okay. Make note of that. Do we have any additional amendments? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move.
Thank you, Dave.
Second?
Thank you, Richard. Okay. Moving on to the public hearing. We have a motion to open and continue the public hearing from the last meeting.
I so move.
Thank Dave. We have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Otis. I guess we'll open the public hearing for construction of a pedestrian trail between Hagen Drive and the Severson subdivision. Do we have any testimony? Come forward, please state your name.
I'm Ron Bushman, representing myself, and I support this. And to help with the routing, I'll give them an easement across my property. But I found something really interesting, and that is that houses now, real estate, is rated for value by walkability, by how close you are to places to walk, to trails, to sidewalks, and that sort of thing. And I actually have a website here, Petersburg Properties, has put walkability ratings on all of their houses they have for sale. Oh, any questions?
I have a question, Ron.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the map with the proposed trail on it. Now, you're allowing an easement on your property. Would this be off of your existing driveway?
No, it's right here, where you come up Noseum Street, come to the end of Noseum Street, and then 100 feet across this, just to my side of the property there.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
You know, I thought about that, but it would compromise the property if I ever did want to develop it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. You have any additional testimony? Yes, come forward. State your name, please.
My name is Rick Braun, and I'm in support of this trail. And I was just, wondering if people in my neighborhood were in support of it. So on Saturday, I just walked around with a petition, and everybody said, "Oh yeah, we'd really like that trail." But anyways, here's the signature people on it's just my street. I didn't go any further than that, and everybody's in support of it. Just speaking for myself. This will be a great addition to the community and to our neighborhood. I love to walk, but I've got a gimpy hip, and if I walk on sidewalks or pavement or something, it's painful. But if I'm walking over uneven ground through the woods, it's no problem, and it's great exercise. And that is about the only thing that keeps the hip together is exercise. So, and I'm not getting any younger, so I'm going to be needing this trail a lot more in the future. So exercise is about the best medicine there is for practically any ailment. And I think everybody in the Severson subdivision, everybody on the other side of the other end of the trail is going to love using the trail both to walk to, to the harbor, or we'll go to the grocery store and the post office, and instead of taking the car. That's just my opinion, and I think it's going to be great for tourists getting off the boats, and they're going to. It's an easy walk from the South Harbor there, and they can see on their maps. Hey, you can hike to the grocery store and get a little nature walk in the meantime. See the countryside, maybe see some wildlife. I think it's a great addition to the community.
Thank you.
Oh, you got a couple.
Yes.
I'm Sandy Dixon. I'm the Fire EMS Director for the borough, and I'm just here to voice my concern about the trailhead being at the fire station. We already run into the issue of parking for our volunteers when there's an emergency, and I realize it's very attractive because the parking lot is empty most of the time, or only 1 or 2 vehicles there. However, in an emergency, the volunteers need a place to park, and they can't really park on the highway, and they need to get there quickly. So even when we have training sessions there with the public, they're taking up all the spaces. So that would just be my concern, and the increased traffic there around our building. So just wanted to throw that out there, that are concerned about parking.
I'm Susan Harai. I'm the Transportation Director for PIA. Do you all have a map?
Yeah.
Okay. This is we're beginning the process all over. So we need the borough's support to move ahead. But even if the borough supports this, it's not a done deal. It has to be accepted through VDOT. Originally, the original route was all on borough property, and they had accepted that. But this new route goes through airport property. So we have a tribal liaison that works with the state of Alaska, and we will be pursuing, if the borough approves this, we will be pursuing an easement or right-of-way of something long-standing. So that's where we're at. This is not finished. Even if you approve this, it's not for sure going to be built. I just want you to know there's some hiccups in it, but that we would continue working with our liaison to get this through.
Excuse me. While we have you up, I've got a few questions.
Sure.
In the design of the trail, my concerns are, we've had one letter of concern about about their property down on Queen Street, and if the trail would go alongside that property. Is that one thing that could be addressed in your design to try to address some of their concerns?
Right. It starts at Queen Street. That's
Right.
what you're referring
So,
to.
yeah, and there were some concerns that were brought up, and that was one of my questions. The other one was, we're going to be having people crossing, probably, as they use the trail to go to the grocery store. I can imagine kids hiking up that trail to go from Severson subdivision to the grocery store. Would there be some sort of putting in a crosswalk, or at least designating a crosswalk space going across Hagen at that area?
Well, right now, PIA is in design of a sidewalk that goes down 12th and up Houken to Hammer Weekon. Okay. And so a sidewalk will be built there because right now the kids in native housing have to, in the dark, in the winter, have to go down Houken. And it's dark and there's no place to walk. And so to catch the bus comes on Haugen. And so, we're worried about that.
Yeah.
So I would assume the borough would want to put a sidewalk there because of the children, Yeah, that was my concern, was kids crossing there. Right.
And then again, addressing the parking situation at the fire hall, it could also tie in with the parking we've been discussing up at the airport. It might be something to say, if we do the parking at the airport, or recommend that to Borough Assembly, that they recommend that signage be put in to say, use the parking up at the airport and use the bike trail to hike from the airport down to tie into that trail. I think that would address the concern of the parking at the fire station. So.
Another thing that you could consider is PIA can build parking lots
Yeah.
for their trails. So that could be part of the design. Maybe we could work with the fire hall to make a parking lot there. That would, of course, the borough would be borough land,
Right.
but something to consider.
Okay.
Yeah, the first thing, though, is to see if we can get the state to work with us.
Yeah.
And it's
Yes.
yeah, a challenge.
Dave?
Have you been in contact with the state on using that right of way yet?
All I got was a letter saying we could lease the land. And then after I got that letter, I contacted you with another design to see if if the borough even wanted to continue, because the last meeting it was, well, is it a possibility? So yeah, it's a possibility. It's just that we have to figure out what's going to make BIADOT happy, what's going to make the state happy, what's going to make the borough happy. So, that's where we're at.
Thanks.
Do you have any additional testimony? Okay. Do we have to?
Yes.
By default, I am here. I got two statements or questions. I guess that Susan might be able to answer some of these after I ask them. And a letter from somebody, and both of these are have sick children, so I'm the sick person that has to deal with it. But I got, personally, my name is Joe Bertignoli, by the way. I do have, as you guys are talking about parking, and I just want to bring this up too, from my point of view, it's not on any of these letters, is what about parking on the other end? That's even worse, kind of, sort of, because there isn't a parking spot. There's just private residences there, and they're going to be parking on the street, in front of people's residences and stuff, just from my observation. So that's my 2 cents, for what it's worth.
Can I interrupt you and ask a question, Joe?
You may.
I mean, since this isn't the type of trail that most people would go on a hike on just to go on the trail, it's mainly an access route. I mean,
well, a lot of it is, I believe you see people at the head of Libby Straits all the time, parking there in front of the warehouses, in front of the German's house, and walking that trail out and walking the trail back. There's cars. I mean, they drive to get to these trails.
Drive
really?
like the trail at Sandy Beach.
Yeah, they drive, and this one is, it's not going to be just for access for the people up in the Severson subdivision. It's going to be people maybe further out, Cornelius, Hungerford, whatever, that might want to come in and hike a nice trail through the woods that's comfortable, that's more than, so they're not hiking through the woods. I believe that will happen, that it's going to be a drive to, let's hike the woods trail.
okay.
You see it up at the ball field all the time, too. There's cars always parked up there and then walking out to Hungry Point and back, so.
You also see it at the end of the runway,
Yeah.
kitty pit.
Anyway,
People park at the elementary school as well and use that trail, so, yeah, I understand that the parking is going to be an issue.
so this is a letter from Allison Thomas Kumps. Once again, we are voicing our concerns about the proposal by PIA to construct a pedestrian trail between Haugen Drive and Ogun Street. At a meeting in October 2016, we will also express concern over the trail passing from our street, Nosium, to Lumber Street. While we appreciate the fact that PIA took our initial concerns into consideration and have moved a portion of the trail, the newly proposed route brings up other concerns. Namely, we are concerned with the portion of the trail from Severson Subdivision, Oden Street, to Nosium Street, and along Nosium Street into the Muskeg up to the airport property. This portion of the trail would border several private residential zone lots, and they have a picture of it here too. But we are concerned that having a pedestrian trail border our properties, especially lots 286B, 1 and 2, will encroach upon the privacy of a future residential home, as well as infringe upon our ability to access our lots once the trail is in place. How would we be able to put in a driveway to a home if there's an existing trail bordering our property? Likewise, we were wondering what would happen to the trail once the borough decides to develop Oden Street through to Nosium Street and to extend Nosium Street. If so, the trailhead would be right at the corner of our property, and the trail would start or end, running right along the south-facing aspect of our plot. Additionally, we worry the increased foot traffic will impact our current residents. We already have to deal with litter strewn alongside the street and at the end of Nosium. Not only do we pick up litter waste, beer cans and bottles, but we have also had to pick up dog poop, which has just been left near our driveway or in our property nearby. So we are concerned that an increase in foot traffic may bring more unwanted garbage into our area. How does PIA plan to monitor and maintain this trail? We also worry that there will be an increase in car traffic. We imagine that folks who don't live in the Severson subdivision may drive to the end of Nosium, park their cars, and walk along the trail. Where will cars park? Where will they turn around? We would like to find out how the trail will be constructed. Would it be a gravel path or raised boardwalk or a combination of the two? Some of the sections through the muskeg seem pretty steep when you look into the topography, so how will those portions of the trail remain safe throughout the winter? Will the trail be accessible throughout the fall, winter, and into early spring? As you can see, we have concerns about this portion of the trail, as well as several important questions. We would urge the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider removing this portion of the trail through the residential areas before approving it for construction. Thank you for allowing us to have this opportunity to voice our concerns. Allison Thomas Kumps.
What was the last part, sorry?
Pardon?
What was their recommendation, or what was their...
We have concerns about this portion of the trail, as well as several important questions. We will urge the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider removing this portion of the trail, in quotes, through, in parentheses, through the residential areas before approving it for construction. So it sounds like they just want to stop that one section there. I don't know, maybe start at the end of Nosium. I don't know what their outcome would be. And this is another, before the public hearing, and another sick child mother. Thank you for the questions. These are ones I think only Susan can answer. And if we have it, her questions are, I have 4 questions before I decide if the trail is a good idea for the community. What material is the trail made from? What is the elevation difference in the ravine or ravines that is proposed trail will cross? Who will maintain this trail? Can monies be spent helping to maintain our current existing parks? And she refers to the closed Yalkakachuk. I think that's the Clinton Haida Park, if I'm not mistaken, or the Ira 2 area, Molly Tiber. So those are. You probably can answer these questions. Okay, leave them there.
Susan Harai.
You have an extra map? I got a copy.
Sure. The Tribal Transportation Program is funded through the federal highway bills. So they have money for maintenance of trails, roads, anything that has to do with harbors, anything that has to do with transportation. They cannot, the grant cannot use their monies to maintain playgrounds. That has to come from other sources because it's a federal grant. So right now, PIA has a maintenance agreement to put a lift on the Hungry Point Trail, 6 inches of gravel throughout the gravel trail right now. We'll probably do that next fall because the crew is working on finishing up the boardwalk, and they have about 150 feet to go. That little boardwalk it intersects Hungry Point Trail and goes down to 14th Street. So the highway bill, this program has been in existence since 1970s. Alaska came into the picture in the 90s, and in 2000s, the tribes started acquiring lands and partnerships to perform, to start the grant. So it's got longevity. They have to fund the Native Americans' reservations, and they do it through the highway bill. And landless natives have the same rights as natives that live on reservations. And so that's why they have added the borough's roads and Forest Service roads and trails to their inventory so that they can have a partnership with these organizations to keep these things open. So it's really just a working relationship between what the borough wants and what PIA can do, and then it's a win-win. So as far as maintenance of the trails, as long as you work together, they'll be maintained because they have some money and they need to employ their tribal members to do something with money, which is either maintenance or construction, transportation related. So it's just, and we've had maintenance agreements with Public Works since, I believe, 2009, and with the Forest Service since 2009. So that's already, 7 years. And the program didn't start till 2005, and it took a while to get the long-range transportation plan going. It took a while to get the road inventory and the trail inventory, and last year we added the harbors. So, that's where we're at. Did I not answer anything? I can't remember.
I think she asked what materials can be made out.
Oh, well, the design, we haven't even really looked at the design. What we did was we reconned it, to make sure we could do it. It depends on if you want it handicap accessible. It depends on what the borough wants. Probably would be a combination of gravel and boardwalk and bridges over any steep parts or creeks. So all of the designs always go through public review, and they have to be signed by BIA, and they're also, they go through the process. So it's a 30-day notice, it's advertised, the designs, we have a public hearing, and then whatever comments the public has, we try to incorporate it. So it's not like it's, done. It takes a long time to do these things. So it's a public process. So, anything else? Did I miss anything? Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Rick Braun again. I'd just like to talk about the parking a little bit. Those roads on both ends, starting with the Severson subdivision end, those roads are designed to be 28 feet wide, parking on two sides. I walk on a lot of the walkways in Petersburg now and drive to those sites, and at the most there'll be 2, maybe 3 cars there. I don't think you're going to need a big parking lot. And those roads at the trailheads are wide enough to accommodate a car or two alongside. I don't think these are not high traffic areas. It's not going to be a huge inconvenience for the neighbors, I don't believe. Except for at the fire hall end, probably should have a small parking lot there. Just my opinion.
Thank you. Do you have any additional testimony?
Nope.
Seeing none, should we move on to the continuation of the public hearing for an application from Jerry and Stacy Dahl, Jay and Sharice Lister, and Olivia Olson for a rezone of 10 lots located on South Nordic Drive. I'm not going to read all the addresses. Do you have any additional testimony on this since we heard testimony last time? Anything that's new? Yes.
I just have a question.
Please come to the mic and state your name.
My name is Marge Oines. I'm just wondering, could you explain the difference between industrial to commercial? What, generally?
Industrial allows you to do more things on the property than you can on commercial. There are a few restrictions, though, where it comes to residential on industrial lots. Liz, do you want to clarify on that?
Oh, right, I muted myself. Liz Cabrera. Industrial is designed for manufacturing and high-intensity uses. Commercial is more about retail and services and professional services. I think the issue here is about residential. So in a commercial district, you're allowed to develop residential, including hotels and lodges and rooming houses and things like that, where under industrial, particularly in that area, it could be limited. Currently, it's allowed as a conditional use permit, but it's not a by right use. You can't just go ahead and do it without getting a permit.
Any additional testimony? Okay. Moving on to the public hearing for an application from Richard Burke for variances from the front yard and side yard setback requirements and the maximum lot coverage requirement for the purpose of constructing a woodshed and a two-story addition with a covered porch in a single-family residential district at 300 North 3rd Street. Do we have any testimony? Yes.
My name is Marge Oines again, and Richard and I are neighbors, and he is a good neighbor to me, and I hope I have been as good a neighbor to him. I just have some concerns. I have lived in my house for 50 years plus, and it's just a small two-story built in the 1940s. And the house just across the street from me was built in the 70s, and it looks like it's a three-story building. It's a residential house, but the piling go up from the ground up about 4 feet at least, and then there's 2 stories above that. And so when that went in, it was like, oh, you know, things are getting bigger. And so now Richard has he's got the one house in the back that seems like the same. I feel like I'm moving to New York a little bit with everything getting higher and higher. But I think everything is up to code. It's just that it's strange to have these taller buildings all around. And I like the open spaces that we have, or I have had. So my concern is, he showed me a new design for where his house is and the deck, and I like that. I think that's okay. I was concerned that he was going to get too close to the street because I just like things open, but I think that's going to be okay. My concern was the second story of his new building. It's almost impossible to, could it be lower instead of 2 stories? I like his design of his new. It looks very nice. It's just that all of a sudden these big buildings are right by my little one, and his garage. I was hoping that he could lower it. I didn't know how high it was, but he told me it was going to be 8 feet. Now he's going to lower it. I was thinking, could it be, I don't know, no higher than 7 feet or something like that. Just when you walk up the street, it's open, and with the garage there, and then we have the big grass hedge that goes up Cronland Street. But that's been there for as long as it's been there since as long as I've been there, which is 50 plus years. So that's like part of the countryside. So if the woodshed could be lower, that would help. So that's just what I'm concerned about.
Thank you. Do we have any additional testimony?
I just had one question on this front sheet, the supplemental today. So what is this exactly?
I noticed I had left out some dimensions. I also had shrank the...
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, he needs to go and say his name and act like a applicant, not a member of the commission, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Richard Burke. This extra set of sheets I handed out, I saw the letter from Doug Cronlin, and so I had shrank the woodshed. Doug Cronlin had requested that the woodshed be 8 feet or less. I shortened it, but I also noticed that I had not really given any, like, the rectangular dimensions of the structure. And I feel that's kind of important to really show what I'm trying to do. Also, I hadn't indicated anywhere the square footages of everything. That's what's in that table at the top.
Okay. So in the original one that's in the booklet, it's going to be 8 by 14, but now it's going to be 8 by 9?
It's going to be 8 by 14 and a half. I shortened it by 6 inches off the house side because I was concerned the meter guy might have trouble fitting through a 2.5 foot wide gap.
Okay.
I felt that 3 feet would be a little bit better.
Okay.
And and I also moved it a foot further away from the property line, so that the snow doesn't drop onto the neighbor's lot. And it didn't indicate on here, but I plan to construct a ditch along the side and the back of it to catch any of the water.
So the city recommended a 5-foot setback, but you're thinking a 3 foot?
I can increase. Well, the city was talking about a setback off the road. I measured the Cronlin's hedge. It's 3 feet off the road. I'd like to actually line up that wall with the hedge, so it's just one plane. So it would further shrink the building a little bit. And I also tend to scalp some of the rock off the driveway to lower the building and level out the driveway. Help with that. And the Cronlin's hedge makes it very dangerous to back out of my driveway. So that's why I'm proposing to put this building here. I'm going to hang a mirror from the corner so I can see up the road. About once a week, I almost get, as I'm backing out of my driveway, I can't see up the hill. And so that portion of the driveway is basically useless to me as far as parking. So I was going to shift the driveway culvert down to be more in line with the section of the driveway that I'm actually using.
And so I also noticed there was a note, it's going to be, is it a multi-use or just a woodshed or?
Yeah, there is a stall in there so I can park my ATV. I don't want my ATV, when I plow snow in the winter, dripping the snow in the garage. I'd rather it drip it on the driveway, but still be sheltered so I don't have to brush the snow off the seat.
And so what height are you thinking of the woodshed now?
Well, I was proposing no more than 8 feet.
Okay.
And that's that's just the wooden part of the structure. I'm going to lower the ground though, so it'll actually effectively be even shorter.
The new part of the house you're building on the foundation of the house you're tearing down.
Yes.
Okay.
The steel I-beams, there was a lot of money invested in that foundation, and but they're ugly. I'd like to reuse it, but hide it.
Yeah. Yes.
Is it possible to not have the woodshed and have your wood on the north side of the red? Because this whole area, could that be a woodshed? Is that a possibility?
I situated it where it's at because it catches the west-facing sun. It dries out the firewood much faster than if it was hidden on the where it only catches the morning sun. It's not very warm. The wood dries a lot slower that way.
There is the whole length of his house, though. He has wood there, and seeing wood is not a problem. I mean, people have wood all over the place, and I don't see that as a problem.
Commission have any other questions?
No, I guess the Public Works is recommending a 5-foot setback from Excel Street. So I'm like, that's a recommendation. I don't know how firm they are on that, but. Considering, I guess.
They want that recommendation because of the snow plowing. And there's things I can do to armor the building. I can stack rocks right along the base of the building, right there, big rocks that aren't going to be hurt by the snow plowing effort on my side of the ditch.
Have you noticed in the time that you've lived in that house, does the snowplow clip the Cronlands hedge?
No.
Okay. So you'd be on the same plane as that if this is approved. So if they don't clip the hedge, they're not going to clip your shed.
Yeah, and if they did by accident, I understand the risk.
Any further questions? Thank you. Moving on to the public hearing for an application from the National Outdoor Leadership School for a conditional use permit to allow for a bunkhouse dormitory in an industrial district at 908 South Nordic Drive.
Which was
Mr. Chairman,
withdrawn.
that application's been withdrawn.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Do we have any visitors' views related to the agenda items? Do we have any visitors' views unrelated to agenda items? Reading report of staff members. Nope. Okay. Moving on to unfinished.
Does the airport parking count, or can we cover that in the discussion?
I believe that's under discussion.
Okay.
So, moving on to unfinished business. Review and recommendation of construction of pedestrian trail between Hagen Drive and the Severson subdivision. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve this trail as it's currently outlined.
Second?
I was just wondering if we were having discussion.
We have to have a second before we have discussion.
I'll second it.
All right, discussion. Do you have any comments?
I have an issue with parking on, in the Severson subdivision area. Excuse me, in the Severson area, that does concern me. Granted, Rick says there's usually only 2 or 3 cars, but if you're a property owner and you see 2 or 3 cars basically adjacent to your driveway, to me as a property owner, that'd get old really quick. The signatures that Mr. Braun collected, many of them are from Tango Street, which is 2 streets away from this. There weren't any people on Odin. There weren't any people on Queen. There weren't any people on Nocium, the streets that are being affected. I think that the trail is a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea to go, if the property owners that are adjacent to this trail are not in favor of it. We've heard from a few people. I know at the previous meeting, we had letters from Aaron Phillips. The people have said, yes, they are for it. People have said they're against it. And I think the people who are directly affected, in my mind, weigh heavier than people who aren't directly affected by it. So I'm going to propose that we don't accept it.
Dave?
I'm confused. I know there's lots there, but there's no houses immediately there, are there? I mean, there
are houses that are going to be proposed. There are pilings that are already driven.
Okay. But there's not any actual structures yet on Noceum Street. At least maybe I missed them.
I don't believe there are on Noceum Street. There are lots that are owned by people that they're concerned about.
Right, no, I understand.
As far as resale goes.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Where Odin comes into Noceum, the Cumps live right there. That was
Right.
the letter.
Okay,
The one
right.
structure.
And then Aaron Phillips owns a few lots on,
Right about the N on Odin.
Right, yeah, the one right where it makes the corner.
yeah.
Okay.
And then we have the letter from Sharon Smith also, who's on Queen Street.
I side with Sandy Dixon on the parking issue up at the fire hall. It can definitely be a problem if there's an emergency. There needs to be a parking lot if this trail is going to happen.
Well, I think we can make recommendations that if we do accept it, that certain issues be addressed in the process of putting the trail in. So rather than outright denying it, say we want to make sure that these issues are addressed and these people's interests are protected, and that we address the issue for parking at the fire hall so there's not a problem developing there. So we just add that into our motion.
It seems like people are in favor of the trail, but they don't want it, like the Cumps said, they don't want it in the residential, but that's the point, it's connecting residential to shopping, so I don't see like how you get around that. Like if people are in favor of the trail, but she said she didn't want it in residential area, like, that's kind of the point.
My understanding would be if you had a road, you're not going to build a trail.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, so, I mean, they're not going to build a gravel, unless it's a sidewalk. Sidewalks are quite common in residential areas. Sidewalks are quite often used by people in residential areas to transit them, just as a trail is.
Well, and through the residential area, this is following the right-of-way.
Correct.
Which is borough-owned property. If it was made into a road, it would have people walking down the road as it is.
That's a good point.
And I understand the concerns about the traffic. I mean, I see a steady stream of people going from an establishment next to property that I own on a constant daily basis, heading up the street. And I understand the concern, but that's a law enforcement issue. I mean, just because you build a road somewhere or a trail somewhere and it's not used for the purposes, if it's used for illegal purposes, and that is a law enforcement issue. I don't think you can condemn a road or a trail just because it's used for illegal activities. If you want to go that far, you could say that having a post office in town also facilitates the movement of drugs into town. So nobody wants to propose getting rid of the post office. Same thing goes to any street in town. You can say, well, there's a lot of people who walk up the street and, they have dogs and they leave their droppings, but nobody proposes, let's move the streets. What you have to do is you have to enforce the regulations that currently exist. And unfortunately, when you live in a society, there's always going to be some people that don't necessarily follow the rules. But I agree on the issue of parking. I don't know who owns the property, if it belongs to the borough, right where it enters the airport property line there.
Those two lots right there would be.
Are those?
I don't know who owns those two lots. The two lots right there where it enters.
These two down here.
You own those?
It's the,
Yeah.
Where it goes at the end of Noseam Street.
Right, okay, those,
We've given an easement across there.
Okay.
right.
And we could work with Susan.
Okay,
It wouldn't be an issue for us.
okay. And then I guess, I don't know how difficult it would be to put in parking up by the fire hall for 2 or 3 cars. I know it's pretty muskegee there, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you looked at that at all?
It's borough land.
It's borough land?
Yeah.
Right.
It's the borough.
Okay.
Like I said, the grant is a transportation grant. Parking, trails, roads.
But that parking could also serve the bike path going out toward Sandy Beach as well, so it could be a multi-use parking facility.
Could also
So-
help with the airport parking issue.
Oh, you don't want to take up the parking there for the
It's
airport,
a
but-
long walk, but it's certainly
Yeah.
shorter than into town.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've been on Noseam where, I don't know, there's that kind of, as I remember, it's like a 4-wheel trail, almost a lumber street. Is there access, I guess?
Oh, you can drive a car there,
You can?
or could,
Okay. I could remember.
if the gate's open and
Okay.
It's currently used as a pedestrian walkway quite heavily. And I understand the concerns of some of the people who live in the area. I mean, I definitely sympathize with them. I have the same concerns myself. But like I said, just because you have a trail, you know, it doesn't necessarily, I mean, I understand, but I think instead of not building a trail because it might facilitate some illegal activities, I think the correct approach is to look at it from a public safety aspect and make for sure that the local police department's aware of it and have them respond to the issue.
I like Chris's point too, that if they built a road there, if the borough decides to build a road like down Odin where there's not currently one, then like that's public, right away.
It's a public right-of-way already.
So-
It's just not developed at this time.
For that reason, I'd like to see that portion gravel instead of boardwalk.
Because of the potential to develop or?
Yeah, gravel would be much easier to develop as a road.
Rather than ripping a boardwalk out, yeah, that would make more sense. But I think as long as the parking issues are addressed and the issues as far as, you know, the areas on right-of-way should probably be gravel trail versus boardwalk. They work with the Petersburg Police Department as how law enforcement's going to be patrolled on this. I think it shouldn't be an issue.
Then if it pleases the board, I'll put in the recommendation that, on my original motion, that that development of parking on Noseam Street, and then also at the terminus of the trail up by the fire hall be included.
If Mr. Bushman is allowing those, or willing to work with the borough on a parking area on the edge of his property where he's already allowed the easement, I don't see where that would be beneficial to have parking in the middle of a trail.
Well, it wouldn't be in the middle.
Could we just create the beginning
Yeah,
at that
it'd be-
point?
It'd be at the beginning, because right now,
Well, as it's proposed,
right,
it starts at Odin. So are we going to take out that whole Odin Noseam and just have it begin on the adjacent area of Mr. Bushman's property?
Well, someone lives in Rambler Street, is going to walk down Odin and Noseam, so they still need that trail. And then, I guess the parking would be on Noseam for anyone that maybe just
Wants to
drives
drive in,
there.
they would park at Noseam rather than parking in Severson subdivision. That trail will definitely get a lot of use. Probably a good move for the borough.
Well, is one of the issues we need to settle first is where this trail begins, whether it begins where it's proposed or Bushman's.
Well, I think eliminating that part that would go along the right-of-way of Odin is going to reduce the usability of the trail by a substantial amount.
Then I'll drive around and park there.
Yeah.
Instead of walking.
Because the people who live in Severson would walk down Odin and take it over to Nosam Street and on the trail. And if you eliminate that section, then they'd have to go out to Nordic and then go up Nosam. I think it reduces the usability of the trail by quite a bit.
Well, my assumption would be that people that were going to drive because they just want to go there and walk the trail would drive up Noseum, and the people that are just walking from Severson subdivision would just walk. I mean, I'm sure people, if they had the opportunity, they would hop in their car and drive to the.
But if they eliminate this section of trail,
yeah, right,
then you
well,
don't
they can
have.
People, if you want to drive to,
Yeah, they can drive up this way in part. But I'm saying the people who walk from Severson, if they've eliminated that, have to go out to Nordic and then walk up.
Right.
So I think it would reduce the usability of that trail for the people in Severson.
Agree.
Yeah.
Do you have any additional discussion on the motion Davis proposed?
Oh,
So is this an amendment to the motion?
yeah, this would be an amendment. Can't do that.
I don't know, did anybody second that
Somebody
amendment?
seconded, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The amendment?
The amendment, right? You made an
Nobody
amendment?
seconded the amendment.
Yeah, okay. So the amendment dies for lack of second? I don't know if you asked.
We haven't heard.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second. I second the amendment.
Okay.
As proposed, that we recommend parking at both ends.
Okay, wait a second.
But the amendment didn't include the gravel portion on the.
Do we want to include the gravel portion on that? Or are we just going to?
Once the design happens, I think they said
We can
they're
do it
gonna
in the
hold public
design.
hearings, so.
So what is the amendment?
The amendment is that there be parking provided on both ends of the trail.
I'll second that.
So we need a
We have to vote on
vote.
the second.
Yes.
We have to vote on the amendment.
All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, you need to do a roll call vote on
Roll
that.
call.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so in regards to the amendment, Chris,
Yay.
Dave,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Otis,
Yes.
Tor,
Yes.
Harley.
No.
Roll call for the motion now?
Yeah, I call for the question on the
On the motion?
motion.
Roll call. Dave,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Otis,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Harley,
No.
Tor.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to review and recommendation from an application from Jerry and Stacy Dahl and Jay and Therese Lister and Olivia Olson for a rezone of 10 lots located on South Nordic Drive. Do we have a motion for recommendation?
This has got to be a recommendation to accept it, right?
No.
Accept or deny. So we're recommending, we either recommend to the Borough Assembly or we recommend they don't.
Recommend they accept it?
Accept it or,
Not.
or,
Okay, I had the opinion that we usually recommended to do it, and then we can vote it down, but
okay.
I recommend we accept this.
Liz?
I was going to say, generally, the motion's made in the affirmative, so you would say something like, I move, we recommend to the assembly that these lots be rezoned, and then you can vote yay or nay on that. But yeah, the motion should be in the affirmative.
Okay, thank you.
I propose that we approve this rezone to commercial 1.
Do you have a second?
I second.
Discussion?
In looking at the minutes of the Harbor Board, I believe they decided to retain the zoning in their industrial zone classification.
Yes.
And that's the reason we pushed this last time. We wanted to know what they were going to say first.
Yeah.
It was up to them. So they've made it pretty clear what their opinion is.
There.
Page 14.
Yeah.
If I'm incorrect, in industrial, there's nothing that would prevent somebody from putting up a restaurant, a beauty shop, any sort of commercial activity. The only thing they really can't do is live there, correct?
They can even have living under a caretaker's dwelling, they just can't have multifamily.
Right. So the only thing that they can't do, correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, the only thing that they can't do in industrial is they can't put up like a hotel or condos or something of that nature that's dwellings, correct?
Correct. In a industrial district, you're allowed to do retail businesses, business and professional offices, barbershops, beauty shops, laundries, and consumer services. Restaurants, cafes, and bars are also allowed. What's not allowed are things like hotels and motels.
Any further discussion? Call the question? Roll call on this?
Okay, now.
Yes means we're recommending the rezone.
We're recommending to rezone, so, okay.
My personal observation of these properties is they've been this way for a long, long time, and Bill is the only person to really do anything with them. I think there is a reason why these property owners are asking. I really wish they were here to help explain themselves today. And that makes it really hard to agree with them because they're not here.
Well, it's we had the testimony at the
Previous meeting.
Yeah, February meeting.
Yeah,
before the Harbor.
and they weren't.
Stacy was here. She gave
Stacy was
testimony.
here. Yeah.
She was the only one.
And I think the recommending a rezone before we have a clear plan of what they're going to do with the property doesn't really make sense. It's like, okay, I want to do this, but, you know, it can't be done in industrial zoning. Then it would make sense to consider doing a rezone on it if it's at that time is felt that it's worthwhile to the community. I think right now just doing a rezone because we might want to do this in the future.
Yeah, I would be much more open to sort of like the variance. I want to do this with this piece of property. The zoning doesn't allow me to do it. Please allow me to do this.
And I think we have a strong in both what we have in code and what we have in, recommendations from the Harbor Board, since this does directly affect them, being between the drive-down dock and municipal dock area and right basically in the middle of the harbor industrial area. I think it's, we kind of have to listen to what their comments are on it.
Yeah.
So,
I think we're all of a similar mind. That's how you vote.
I think that one of the reasons they want the rezone is so they can have a dwelling in,
I would agree.
But you can,
or a bed and breakfast in a dwelling there,
yeah.
or a warehouse.
Well, you could have a warehouse under industrial,
But you can't have a bed and breakfast also.
so, yeah.
But the property owners can apply for that specific use if that's what they wish to do.
At the time, exactly.
They can
Yeah,
apply for
Stacy said when she
conditional
was here that they didn't have any concrete plans right now, but in the future, they may want to do a hotel or a B&B. So I think we're all, like Tor said, under the same agreement that, well, when that happens, come back to us.
Yeah.
As of right now, there's no reason there's no reason to change it.
We have a lot of things that are pointing us to say, don't approve this, and we don't really have a plan of why they would want to make the change right now.
Right.
And
So I think
that's
recommending
why I'm
it.
bringing that up right now,
Yeah.
so that we're very clear on why we're saying what we're saying.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
Question?
yep. Roll call?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify, sorry.
Yes.
Are you approving this with the findings of fact as presented, or did you want to add something or change anything from, because that's what's going to go
Yeah.
to the Borough Assembly, so if you wanted something different than what's in there.
I skimmed through it and it looked good to me. I don't know if,
Like, I think section 2 is the most important part on page 12. It just says the needing and justification for the proposed change, and we don't have it. They didn't give us any reason for the change, so
Yeah.
I think that's our reason.
yeah,
I think that's solid.
so. Yeah, I would accept it with the findings of fact. Or, so,
Tor,
No.
Carly,
No.
Otis,
No.
Richard,
No.
Chris,
no.
Dave.
No.
Okay. And that was withdrawn. Okay, moving on to new business. Consideration of an application from Richard Burke for variances from front yard and side yard setback requirements and maximum lot coverage requirement.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yeah.
think you reordered the agenda to do
Oh, we're going to do...
9B.
First.
Excuse me, yes.
Need to call.
And the letter from Mr. Ford is on page 32 of your packet.
Thank you.
Ooh, she says.
Lynette Campbell.
This call concerning his or,
The airport parking,
oh, this is,
9B.
we're dealing with 9B quickly
And
here.
we got to do A.
We have a consideration request from Chris Ford for a 12-month extension on the setback on the variance at 201 Hogue Alley. We have a motion for an extension on that variance.
I make a motion to extend the variance.
I second it.
Discussion?
Is there any reason not to extend it?
I don't see one.
I don't know the background.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, Liz.
Please.
The applicants received a variance about a year ago, and I think they explained in their letter briefly that there is a power pole located on their property. They need that power pole relocated so that they can actually develop it the way they intended in using the variances that were granted. That problem is being worked on, and so they want to make sure that they have enough time to get that resolved and apply for the building permit before the variance expires. So,
Thank you.
Sounds pretty cut and dried to me.
Yeah, I'm ready for the question.
Richard?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Otis?
Yes.
Carly?
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Consideration of an application from Richard Burke for variances from front yard and side yard setback requirements and the maximum lot coverage requirement for the purpose of constructing a woodshed and a two-story addition with covered porch in a single-family residential district on 300 North 3rd Street. You have a motion.
I move we accept the I better read what I'm going to say here. This variance for Richard Burke, who the placement of his building is I guess I'm not sure what I need to say here.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
may I suggest, it's kind of complicated because there are so many separate variances that even though it might take a little bit longer, you might
want to do a motion
go
on
through one at a time.
Okay.
Just because there's different conditions on each one, and in the end, it might be simpler, even though it will require.
Do you have it broken out that way in here?
I do, on page 25.
Thank you.
So, Otis, if it's okay with you, I'll just, I'll make a new motion to approve A on page 25 of the recommendations of the variance application for Richard Burke.
This is the side yard setback and construction of a storage shed 3 feet from the property line. Do we have a second?
I second.
Discussion. I think the 3 feet addresses the snow issue, and I don't think that particular one is a major problem for me.
And, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to mention, too, that since the applicant isn't going to be required to apply for a building permit because of the size of the structure, we're going to have to go by the submitted plans, and so I'm assuming that we're going to go by the most recent profile of the structure, which has
Just
got
amended.
the 8-foot
8-foot overall height.
overall height, and then also the 312 pitch on the roof.
Okay.
Based on the amended measurements from Mr. Burke, I make a motion that we approve A. Did we already do that?
Yeah, we've already done it.
Okay.
Dave's already got it.
So,
Yeah.
oh, we're still in discussion? So,
We're in discussion, yeah, on A.
Yeah, we're on A.
Mr.
Are
Chairman,
we ready to call for the question on that?
Mr.
yes, we
Chairman,
did.
just a quick note on, and you did read Doug Cronlund's notes, correct? even though you're saying it's 3 feet from the property line. The one concern he had was the eaves hanging over to his property.
Yeah, well, this says that the approximately 3 feet including eaves.
Oh.
So,
Well, I guess I should read A.
so it's 3
So
feet.
the eaves itself.
From the
is 3
edge of the
feet.
eaves to the property line.
Oh.
So,
And you also recommended that it have a low-pitched roof, too.
And he did change the pitch of the roof.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
so,
I'll call the question.
Okay. Aye. Tor,
Yes.
Carly,
Yes.
Chris,
yes.
Richard, oh, sorry, Dave,
Yes.
and Otis.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to B.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve a variance from the 20-foot front yard setback requirement, Excel Street, to allow for construction of a storage structure approximately 5 feet from the property line.
I'll second.
Discussion.
I think as the plans are now, it's supposed to be 3, his plan is for 3 feet, and he understands it.
You have to do a little adjusting of the. Is your dimensions not?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the request is for 3 feet, and the recommendation is to follow Public Works' recommendation for the 5 feet, just to
Yes,
clarify
I
the
saw that.
difference.
And just to clarify, this is a setback from Excel Street that we're talking about right now, not the back lot line.
Right. Yeah, this is on the Excel Street side.
I think the hedges that were mentioned are like grandfathered in, they're 3 feet back.
Mr. Chairman, I think the Public Works, they felt that if the snow took out the hedges, it was not such a big deal. But if the snow damaged Mr. Burke's property and the structure,
Yes.
that would be more of a liability for the borough, so, and more of an issue. So I think that's where they came up with that 5 feet, where they're not quite as concerned for the hedge.
Wouldn't break the plow either.
Do we have any further discussion?
I second.
Dave made the motion.
So we're recommending how, if I amended approximately to 5 feet, would it?
Yeah. We're following the recommendation, the findings of fact, if we go with the motion I think that Dave made, so.
But it's approximately 5 feet. Could we make that an like definitive 5 feet? I don't know if I made an amendment for that. I mean, 5 feet compared to 3 feet, I guess, is approximately in some people's eyes. I don't know. I'm just asking if people think that's worth qualifying or leave it as it is.
Liz?
Yeah, Liz, please.
I usually put approximately because, I feel like the property owner is going to get it as close as they can. And, if it's 2 inches off, then we're not going to lose sleep over that. So, but if you want to put 5 feet, that's fine. You can put 5 feet. Yeah.
I think approximately is fine, and we can keep the motion the way it is. We ready to call the question?
Sure, I'll call the question.
Yeah.
Okay. Dave,
Yes.
Otis,
Yes.
Tor,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Carly,
Yes.
You on a roll, Dave?
Yep, sure. On number C, I make a motion to approve a variance from the 20-foot front yard setback requirements, Excel Street, to allow for construction of a two-story addition and covered deck approximately 15.5 feet from the property line.
Mr. Chairman, if I read the revised drawings correctly, I don't think the applicant needs that variance. Is that accurate? On the front? But not on Excel side, right? Oh, okay. I didn't
Yeah,
see it that way.
he's 15 feet, 4 3/8 is what you
Oh, I
say
see what
on the
you're saying.
Excel Street side, and 17 feet, 8 11/16 on the
So that hatches the
Third
covered
Street
deck.
side.
Okay, for the covered deck, okay. So I would amend that so that it just is for construction of a covered deck based
Okay.
on the more recent drawings. Not for-
Construction of a covered deck, not a two-story addition.
Right.
Okay.
So scratch the two-story addition. You made the motion, Dave?
Yes. Yes, you can scratch the two-story addition. You want me to reread it?
Yep.
Okay,
So is this amendment?
No, this second.
yes. No, it's not an amendment, we're
Oh,
just
cool.
revising. I withdraw my motion. I will make a new motion. For C, approve a variance from the 20-foot yard setback requirement, Excel Street, to allow for construction of a covered deck approximately 15.5 feet from the property line.
I'll second.
Okay.
Question?
Yeah, question?
Okay. Carly?
Yes.
Tor?
Yes.
Otis?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Okay. D, I make a motion to approve a variance from the 20-foot front yard setback requirement, North 3rd Street, to allow for a reconstruction of a covered porch approximately 17.5 feet from the property line.
I'll second.
Question?
Call the question?
Tor?
Yes.
Carly?
Yes.
Otis?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Okay, E, approve a variance from the 35% maximum lot coverage requirement to allow for construction of a two-story addition with covered deck to cover approximately 39% of the lot.
A second.
One more percent, huh?
I still second.
Which should actually.
So I think of my understanding that they're rewriting the zoning codes in the city, or I guess correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, but you can have a larger percentage than 35%, correct? Like typically.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I was just saying that 35% maximum lot coverage is a small amount, is it not?
In some places, it goes much higher, yes. Not
Well, in the
some
rewriting
places.
of the code, are you considering changing that?
I am looking at changing that, particularly in that downtown area where there's a small lot.
Small lots are.
So,
Thank you.
Are there very many other lots in that area of town that have more than 35%?
I think there are several that have that lot coverage because they created it prior to zoning. So, and I think in some cases, maybe people didn't realize and exceeded it without meaning to, that there's that 35%. So, Also, if we were going to allow for that accessory dwelling unit, it seems like we might have to be a little bit more flexible on the lot coverage in order to allow people to be able to do that.
I'll call for the question.
Chris,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Otis,
Yes.
Carly,
Yes.
Thor.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Moving on to discussion items. Airport parking.
I was sent on a mission last time, at the last meeting. We currently have parking for approximately 35 cars, long-term parking up the airport. I also got an estimate from Reed Brothers, $55,000 to $65,000 for the construction of a parking lot in that area that we discussed.
Okay, that's how big of a lot approximately?
I think it was like 150 feet by about 300 feet.
Okay.
So that'd be enough for about how many cars?
Approximately 35 cars.
35 cars.
The idea was
Yeah.
to double the existing.
Double the existing parking, okay.
just heard it.
So would be fairly reasonable to get a grant for doing that. potentially. As far as like contacting the Forest Service, or the federal government on that Forest Service access.
Let's put it next to the ferry, or to the fire hall.
Is that just filling, or is that extubating and filling?
That's just placing fill. And there's sort of a visual screen there from the town side. There's a row of trees keeping it to the sandy beach side of that. So as you're coming up the hill, you wouldn't see it until you're. But there's enough visibility for pulling out safely onto the road there. And it's right across the street enough that would make logical sense to consider parking there. There's two entrances already over the trail where they paved sections.
So it would be a pretty straightforward, simple.
Wonder if PIA would be interested. It's transportation related.
It's a good idea.
Potentially.
But my understanding of what we can do is just make a recommendation.
I think we make a recommendation to the Borough Assembly that they pursue looking into this, because I think there's, through one of many avenues, there could be a way to get the project paid for, and it would, I think, greatly benefit the community.
And I understand the borough doesn't have any money to pay for this,
Yeah.
but we could potentially find alternate funding, but we would need the support of the Borough Assembly for this.
Yeah.
I missed the last meeting, I guess, in February. So where is the proposed?
A little background, I got in touch with this Lynette Campbell lady from Airport Leasing, and she pointed me to an Alaska Administrative Code. I don't have the number off, but where the airport can lease property to the borough for zero cost for the benefit of the airport. And additional parking at the airport would directly benefit the airport.
And so where are you proposing the parking lot?
Right across.
Basically right across the street from the terminal.
Alaska Airlines terminal. There's kind of a row of trees. There's, I guess, a wetter area with better drainage, so there's trees, and to the sandy beach side of that.
Had it in here, but I don't know that I do. Oh. Last meeting.
I think it's something that's been needed for a long time. And my discussion I had with FAA is that our airport and most of the parking adjacent to the airport is not in compliance right now with current regulations. My fear has been, as we all experienced after 9/11, where they wouldn't let us park in front of the airport, and where most of the people park right now at, if that happens again, there's just not going to be enough parking there. And so I propose that if we look into this, we see if we can get an FAA grant. I think it's a good possibility that we can get an FAA grant through Homeland Security to construct this parking lot. So that would be another revenue source for looking at it, for funding, if, or also possibly PIA. I think there's several entities out there that we, if we had the support of the borough, we could probably find the financing for it.
And this would potentially be eligible for FLAP funding as well, Federal Lands Access Program.
That's what I was thinking.
So the Forest Service could potentially help out with that as well, because you fly to Petersburg, it helps provide access to federal lands.
Yeah, I think there's multiple avenues where the Borough Assembly could look at getting funding to pay for this project from outside sources. It really wouldn't cost the borough anything other than maintaining it, and that could be addressed through either creating some sort of paid parking or something of that nature in the future. So, I mean, Ketchikan charges $1 a day to park in their parking lot, just to pay for maintenance on it. So.
Do a resolution or a recommendation?
Should we do a recommendation to the Borough Assembly, or how do we address that? Liz?
I think you have to wait till it's an action item.
We'll move it to an action item for our next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. And moving on to review of the proposed zoning code, Article 4.3. Liz?
Sure you've all read it by now. No. This is the portion of the code that would deal with subdivisions and required public improvements if you subdivide. And I think page 35, which is the first page.
Page 35?
Yep, page 35.
Page 35.
And so you'll note in that first section, under Purpose A, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and that describes 4 different kinds of subdivisions. Subdivisions, a regular subdivision, which is 5 or more lots, which is what we currently have on the books. A minor subdivision, 4 or fewer, we currently have that on the books as well. A property line adjustment would be something new and something that we would handle internally, administratively that is, as opposed to having to come to the Planning Commission if someone just wanted to shift a line over, but they weren't actually creating any new lots. We could do that action administratively. That's not on the books right now, so that would be a change. Lot consolidations, where you are dissolving a line between 2 lots, that's also handled administratively, and that's currently on the books that way.
Okay.
And then number 4, which would be a new addition, this idea of a remote subdivision. So that is the portion of the code that would deal with areas that are off Mitkoff Island and outside of the Mitkoff Highway corridor, where we wouldn't be expecting anyone to make any public improvements when they subdivide. So those subdivisions, we would just be looking for things like legal and practical access to the subdivision and then to each individual lot. And then also looking at having a minimum lot size to accommodate for on-site septic systems when you're outside of the service area or the water and sewer service area. The rest of it is, the pre-approval process. There's a few other things in here, like pre-planning for large subdivisions. We have something similar in our code. I don't know that it's ever actually been used, but maybe it might be something worth having. I don't necessarily anticipate having a phased-in giant subdivision come to town, but I suppose one never knows, and maybe we should be prepared in case that were to occur. And then it goes through also on, the difference between a preliminary plat and a final plat. Generally speaking, the commission is going to look at a preliminary plat. You would give approval to that. You would not approve the final plat until all of the public improvements are made, and that's the way it's currently done in the code, so it just lays it out. As far as replats and vacation and all of the filing and recording, it's pretty similar to what we have on the books. One change I'm also looking at is there's a lot in our code that really only 2 or 3 people read, and that's land surveyors. That lays out like exactly how you have to do the plat, the line weights, number of monuments, the geodetic controls, the datum, and on and on and on and on. And I'm considering taking that out of the code and then just referencing state regulation for that. They have a pretty rigorous platting submission requirement, and they actually keep up to date with it and revise it periodically. So I think it's a good model for us to follow, and that way our code doesn't end up being,
And our code currently pretty much follows theirs?
It pretty much follows theirs. As far as monuments and things, I think theirs is actually a little bit more rigorous than ours. But it's been updated a lot more frequently than ours has to keep up with new technologies and things like GPS and, other new things that have come along since our code was passed. But I think that would really keep ours narrowed down to what most people would want to read, and people who are surveyors would probably find that other part of it pretty fascinating, and they could just refer to that for our standards. But that's kind of it in a nutshell, and certainly, we can have more rigorous discussion now or later, and always welcoming comments on it. So
the lot line thing concerns me just a little bit. If somebody were to move a property line, it affects the setbacks on that property line. And so I could see how that could potentially create an issue if all of a sudden you move the property line closer to your neighbors. Now you can build something closer to your neighbor because that moves the setbacks with the property.
I think it'll be a judgment call on their part, though. Like, if it is touchy, then they'll kick it to us.
I trust Joe to kick it to us if it's touchy.
I think, too, that you'd have to have both property owners signing on something like that as well. So,
and if they disagree, they're automatic. Joe's automatic.
we wouldn't be approving that if there was disagreement.
You wouldn't be approving it either if they tried to create a line that created an illegal setback. If they were going to do that, if they could have to come and try to do a variance, so then that would flag it to come to you guys.
Well, and if they try to create a lot that's also smaller than the minimum lot size, they'd have to have variance and it would kick it to us, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you, Liz. It looks very good.
Yes, thank you. There wasn't a whole lot to comment on. It was that good.
Well, okay, I won't say anything else then.
Yeah, it looks very good. Anybody else have any comments, questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Oh, can we talk about the next meeting?
Oh, yes.
Which is,
In the record.
I think we have our sheet here, which tells us when our next meeting is supposed to be.
May 16th?
and I'll be able to make it.
I'll be in town.
I'm always in town.
May 16th. Unless you're not.
I'm planning on being here. Plans change though sometimes.
I'm kind of a maybe. Reed Brothers is getting ready to start work on the Portage Bay Road system about middle of May. I'll try to be here.
Okay. So our next meeting is May 16th at 4:30 PM.
I won't be here.
No, well, then we can't have a meeting.
I don't count.
We'll miss you. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
A second.
No.
All in favor?